So my name is Cheryl, and this is a call I host weekly called Navigating Aging through the Heartfelt Foundation. And we get together and talk about all things about thriving while we age. And we're all aging. We usually have a different topic every week that we talk about, and then the floor is open for sharing. The topic that I thought we could talk about today is how to prepare for a disaster, a natural disaster, because the hurricanes that just came in last week. And then we can open it up for sharing. Uh, really, what it came down to when I was thinking about it is it's really getting together these lists and organizing our stuff, like we've been talking about for, I guess, life, but specifically like when we start to age and like, hey, if someone else needs to find my stuff, like as we age, the probability of something happening to us, uh, as far as an accident or something, ending up in the hospital and needing help for a short period of time or a long period of time, increases. So then we talk about it when we're aging, but it's really good to have it at any age. Uh, I'm sure a lot of the people that were affected by this hurricane didn't consider themselves, oh, I'm aging and I should get my things together. They're probably young people. So as we get older and prepare for a natural disaster, what's the difference, right? So the basics would be to organize your contact information, so you have it organized. And now I think of it as like if it was a fire zone or a hurricane zone, right? You'd have like your go bag or box. So if something was going to happen and you needed to leave right away, you'd have an area that you knew, I'm going to pick up these things and get out. Those are the same things we want to organize as we get older too. So if someone needs to step in and assist us, that's ready. So again, we've got our contact list. Maybe that includes doctors, friends, insurance companies, important contacts that if we needed to call somebody, or someone needed to call somebody for us, that we would have it there. Family, uh, also copies of your powers of attorney, could be copies of your will. These might be things that you think these are going to be in a safe or out of a safe. Like some things, like copies of a trust, maybe people often, if they have a safe, they'll put it in there. They've got jewelry or things like that, they'll put it in there. So they know, like, I've got two places. One, I've got this box that's organized or some drawer that's organized that can go with me, and then I'll go to my safe and pull that stuff out. Um, Another item to have would be a current medication list. If you get displaced and you've got a list of medications, and it will be a lot easier to replace those medications if you get displaced. Um, and if you have your contact list, include your pharmacy. Also, they might have your prescriptions, but sometimes we have more than one pharmacy that we go to. So then, if we have the list of your contacts and your current medication list, that's good. Um, any assistive devices we need to think about, like as we get older, sometimes people use a walker, wheelchair, hearing aids, things like that. Those are things to, if you've got X amount of hours to prepare for leaving for, I'll use the hurricane for an example. Some of the people had hours to just prepare. Some had days, but some hours. And probably some people never even heard it was coming. But let's just say you have 12 hours. We'll just use that as an example. So you want to stage your assistive devices. If you have hearing aids and chargers, if you consider that you may not be able to go back to your house either for a while or forever, uh, what would you want with you? And sometimes it's just, what can you fit in your car? You could think about water or food. Sometimes, with this hurricane, I saw them sending drones in delivering insulin to people. So that's another thing. So if you're diabetic, do you need certain food or snacks? It reminds me in California anyway, we're suggested to have an earthquake kit. So in the earthquake kit, you've got a box that, could be somewhere that's not going to get demolished if your house falls down or if part of your house falls down. And in that would be uh, food that would last a while, that you're not going to, maybe check your box every year and maybe have protein bars and peanut butter, or if you're allergic to peanut butter, you don't have peanut butter. So you have snacks that you can eat if you can't get to food right away. Medical supplies such as extra glasses, oxygen if you have it, and then also a plan B. If you're someone who has oxygen that's using a concentrator, which is plugged into an outlet, what are you going to do if you need oxygen and you don't have power? Oftentimes there's separate tanks. They even sell oxygen in cans now. You can buy that from like Walmart. Hikers use it. So it might be having some oxygen cans around in case you need it. I would say older people that have, well, anybody actually that has mobility issues will want to have a transportation plan. Say the hurricanes are coming in, or like, yeah, you've got 12 hours to get out, but you can't get yourself out. Maybe you're in a wheelchair, walker, you don't have a car anymore. Who is going to be your point person, right? Might be impossible to get an Uber at that point. So having a backup transportation system, rides are important. Any legal documents, like, again, power of attorney, medical cards, insurance cards, driver's license. You think, sometimes if we go on a trip, I think, okay, what do I want in my carry-on luggage versus my check luggage? Like if I'd never see my check luggage again, what would I want? It's the same thing. Like, what would I want to bring with me if I could never get back to my house? And then just organize those. Have a spot that's easy to find. Also, having a plan for your pets is really important. We saw that with the hurricane, and some of the videos I was seeing that people just needed to go, and their pets were locked up, and maybe they forgot they were out back locked up, and then other people that were there later noticed that, like, these horses were locked up and came and let them out, and they got out of the flood water to save them. So things that we don't usually think about, but that we, at times like this, when the disaster is on the top of our mind, allows us to think about things to prepare for that we would normally not think about. Those are the main things that I find that are important. So I would love to hear from you, what your ideas are. Hi, B. What your ideas are, even how you've maybe been affected recently, or just anything you want to talk about.
Well, I'll actually tell you that my sister in Asheville, North Carolina, was evacuated. She couldn't get down, but finally someone was able to come up and get her. And she would have tried to do it, but she said she didn't have enough gas in her car.
Right.
Oh,
That's another thing. Yes.
here you
Yes.
have gas in your and batteries.
Yes.
Anyway, she's fine.
Batteries. Yes.
Friends came to pick her up yesterday, and she's in Charlottesville, and she's okay. So have enough gas, have some batteries.
Yes. Yep. Gas is a big one. I don't know. It's funny because in my normal life, I think of things like that, like, hey, try to fill up. If you're like just below half, try to fill up, because just in case something happens. And, nothing's ever happened in my years of needing it. So it's sort of like, I don't know. Some people would go, well, like, do you worry much? And I go, well, I don't know. It gives me peace of mind knowing that if something does happen, that I'm a little more prepared. Although I try not to be like, anxious about it, but just thoughtful, right? Um, I realized yesterday that we have a couple backup generators that we could use for power, but I don't have extra. I do have some extra gas, but those need to be checked, and fuel additive add to it. So there's so many things to think about. Um, and the nice thing is that we don't have to think about everything, but we can think about what we can. And then usually when these situations happen, neighborhoods come together and they share things, right? So and so has a generator. We'll go down there for power. Oh, the library has Wi-Fi. We'll go there. And so, we you can take comfort in that. Usually, we don't have to think about everything, and be as prepared as we can without being anxious. So I'm so glad that your sister is evacuated. Yeah, I've been to Asheville and can imagine, picture the town. And I don't know if the people there actually thought this kind of thing could ever happen. Although it could be, if you look way back in history, maybe that area has been in danger before.
Well,
So
actually, she grew up in Florida, so believe me, she thought she was getting away from
right.
things, but no. And her house is okay, and her dog is okay. Her
Oh,
dog's
good.
Addie, and I said, "What does Addie stand for?" Attention deficit disorder dog.
That's funny. That's funny. I'm glad she's okay, and it's wonderful. And the part of me that can get nervous about disasters, I really look at, like, most of the time we're okay. Like, all these storms and all these horrible things that happen, most of the time we're okay, you know. So that's gives me a little comfort. Hey, Kay.
Yes, first B, I wanted to see if you could either put it in the chat or say what your sister's name is, first and last, so we can energize and send her lots of light, if that's for the highest good. So light to B's sister, and light to my aunt, who is Irene Turback. She's in assisted living, but her facility in Atlanta was okay. And thank God, let's just send the light to all the assisted living facilities and the hospitals in that area too. Luckily, my relatives in North Carolina are okay. Just two other really quick things. One that I find really important for any time, whether it's a disaster or not, thank you, B, is water. And sometimes we take water for granted, but clean water supplies are so valuable, not just food, but water. So light to all of the water supplies and the mules that are being used in Western North Carolina. They're using mules to help with getting supplies. I love that area. So, and also the final thing is the blessing that comes forward with this is people come together. People really look at what's important, maybe their stuff, their expensive homes or their watch from their grandmother or whatever, that they really get to see what the blessing is. So I bless all of you and bless you. And thank you, Cheryl, for doing this. God bless. So thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Yeah, it's a great reminder of what's important. And then to think, like, if something happened and just leveled my house today, right? Like, what would be most important? Like, none of the stuff in the house, my toolbox. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So it's nice to, it puts things in perspective for sure.
You bet.
Yeah. And water. Yeah, my family lives in Florida, and it's probably been 7 or 8 years ago, maybe a little more now, but they were right in that area near Palm Beach that 2 hurricanes came right through. within a couple weeks of each other, and they spent like a day in the with the storm over them, and a day in the like the little laundry room area in the middle of the house, and everybody lost power for a long time, and so that then we learned, to save, if a storm's coming, you fill up your bathtub with water, for example. And people learn, like, oh, your hot water heater has maybe 30 to 50 gallons of water in that could be you could drink if you needed to. So there's lots of survival things that people keep in mind. Yeah. Susan.
Hi there. My niece lives in Siesta Key, right on the Gulf Coast in Florida.
Yes.
And I've never ever had any problems, not for this one or anything. It just seems to bypass her, and which is, thank God. I'm really excited about that.
Yes.
I live deep in the forest at the end of a road, and so don't really worry about floods because we're up on a hill, but I certainly do concern about fires. And luckily, I live next door to the assistant fire chief, so she will keep us protected. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how each person has their own risk tolerance as far as where they can live, and then what they go through, and if they choose to live there, continue to live there. Like, there's some folks in our family that used to have places like in Ojai and Santa Barbara that when those fires came through a few years ago, they stayed, and then some left. And I think I wouldn't move to the mountains, and then I think, how do they even sell houses? How do they sell the houses there? But some people are willing to take that risk of living there. The same thing with Florida. Some people are willing to take that risk. It's gorgeous when like 99.9% of the days are fine. And yeah. And then you in the forest. And I'm reminded, I was thinking about this morning, how that we each have our own vision of what our best life is, right? It could be in the mountains, it could be on the beach. And the question that I would ask is are you willing to die doing that? And then that's the perfect place for you then, right? There was a family friend recently. He's probably in his mid-60s. Family hadn't heard from him for a couple weeks, and turns out he died in his apartment. And he was alone. He wasn't otherwise sick. Nobody knew. It was a surprise. It was a heart attack. And then some people could go, oh man, that's so sad. He was alone and nobody knew, and blah blah. It's like, but he was this kind of guy that was his best life. He loved his computer. He loved being alone. He loved being with family, but then he loved being alone. And so, if someone were to have told him, like, I know, if we knew ahead of time, hey, you're going to have a heart attack, you might want to move to an assisted living, or move with family, or move in with me, because then we could find treatment for you and you could get better, and someone else's vision for him, he wouldn't have lived how he wanted to. So I think the same thing for places that, that have a possibility for a natural disaster. Like, if it's your calling, I love that people are doing that, living in the forest, living on the beach, etc. So, and then you make a plan if you want to. What else is going on? How are you doing, Gregory?
Hear me?
I can.
Oh, good. I'm doing well. I was just thinking about the 2018 fire that happened around me in the Gura Hills and evacuating in the middle of the night. And basically going to my file cabinet and pulling out those file drawers that had all the stuff, you know, for taxes and all that stuff, and putting it in the back of my car, the trunk and stuff like that. And me and my wife just getting in and driving, actually ending up in Pasadena as the only place we could find a hotel that still had a room at 1 o'clock in the morning to do that. And we stayed there for 3 or 4 days as the fires raged around us. And unfortunately left our house still there at the end. Everything else was burned around us, but left our house. So maybe prepared. So that was my experience for evacuating and being prepared is picking a direction to go that we figured that there'd be no fires and hoping for the best at the time. I think I'll do something different this time.
So I'm
Other
curious
than that,
because you had that example, what were some things that you think, you know, other than the things that we've mentioned, but what did you learn from that experience that you go, hey, I would do this the same or different, or I'm glad I had this with me, or I wish I had that with me?
I've gone through all those kinds of things, and very much the ones you've mentioned before, and some to certain circumstances I haven't dealt with, and I have part of as part of the things in my file cabinets I was taking with me. I of having, you know, compressors for tires if tires come down, of having you know, emergency things for health reasons if I get cut. And I got to realize that I don't know if I'd ever get complete other than having a huge, to have anything that would finalize every possibility that could happen as such. So I'm of the opinion now that the next time it will happen, I'll do the best I can with what I have, and hopefully my life will go in a direction that will take me out of it. And so far in my life, that's the way it is, and I don't think I have too much more to go. So I may get to the end that way. So I don't have a huge level, as you can tell, inside of angst or trepidation about it. I just and so question. It's not it's not a mental problem with me. It's more of an internal one in terms of where will I put myself ahead of time so that might not be a concern. So I have been looking about where I live right now, and it's not the same as when I moved in here in 1992 in terms of the climate or the things around me or stuff like that. And is there a better place to live that would handle this more in terms of not having an earthquake or not having fires around me? But the more I look around the planet, I don't know if there's any place where a war is not getting you or a hurricane's not getting you or something's coming in that just kind of messes up whatever you think is going to go on. So so part of me is just living in that serendipity of where I place myself inside and outside. This doesn't answer the practicalities of it, but lately I haven't been very practical, and so here. And I thank you for doing what you're doing. All right.
Thanks, Greg. That's
Bye, the rest of you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's so true. I think that you, it's like we were saying earlier, you're going to be most likely you're going to be fine. Put yourself into choose the best place, whether that's risky or not, but choose the best place. It reminds me sometimes when people are like, oh, I'm going to retire and I'm going to move to the mountains. And then people move to the mountains and they're like, oh man, but now I need a hospital nearby. And then they're like, oh, I can't be in the mountains because that's too far away from the hospital. It's like, well, what are the chances you're going to need a hospital? Or are you willing to just take that risk and hope for the best, etc.? So, and what's nice too is that so many things can be digital now, as far as before we need to take all the papers with us, but now you can take pictures of things, have them on your phone. Then if your phone disappears, you could have it on your iCloud. So eventually, if you find internet, you could get the thing. So we have a lot more options and backups that way. I see your hand, B. Whenever you come back. One of the people in our family, or MSIA family, Martha, you guys might know. I'll just leave it as Martha. But she used to live on an island. It was like St. Martin or something. That got like decimated from the hurricane. Their house was okay, but their island was decimated, and they decided we're going to leave. We're going to move to Florida. I think it was like St. Pete, maybe. And then hurricanes came in there, and they're like, we're going to leave. And they now live outside of Asheville. So their little area was fine, but Asheville's nearby. And so the hurricane came there. So just like you were saying, like, okay, well, you could try to pick a place. There's lots of things to think about in that, right? As far as where the water will go, if there's a lot of water, etc. So no matter where you go, there's always something. Just enjoy the time that you're there. Hi, B. Wait, you're on mute, honey.
I know.
There you go. Okay, there we go.
So, of course, it came to me, and of course, through JR. Does everybody remember what a money magnet is?
Oh, yes.
Cash.
Right.
Cash.
So,
Well, listen, I've got such nice stories about that. I saved once enough that I could get a round trip to New York, and then another time to India. And then I've made good deposits. So I'm reminding us to have enough cash, because sometimes banks are closed and stuff like that. So that's my contribution.
I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I thought you were going to say, like, you got all this cash under your bed, and then like you got to leave. So then you got to like pack up all your cash
Well,
before you head out.
I've told my children where it is and what's it in. So they know where to go to get the cash.
Nice. Yes. So the money magnet, JR would talk about, keeping cash like at home basically. And that would attract, the money magnet would attract more cash, right? So you build up this cash. And then hopefully you like put in a fireproof safe. But it's true. It's like when the credit card machines are down and you want to get something, cash is king so far anyway.
And then one can tithe and seed.
That's right. Keep your church going. Yeah, that's a good reminder. I'm so used to not well, I'll say I actually do carry cash, but I almost never use it. But it is a good reminder to have cash, because every so often somewhere doesn't take all your things, or the computers are down and they won't take Apple Pay or something. Karen.
Hi, everyone. So I was listening to the news this morning and about a guy who basically knew the hurricane was coming. He lived in Nashville and he decided he was going to stay. And his neighbors basically watched his entire house float away. And he, I guess, found a tree and was clinging to this tree for hours. And then it sounds like there was no way they were all trying to come up with a plan to go and rescue him. And they just realized there was no way anybody was going to survive the trying to rescue him. Anyway, it doesn't sound like he made it. I guess he held on for about 6 hours and he was in his mid 70s. And that, I mean, the rushing river, seems like he'd have to have some superhuman strength to do that. But I guess it just brought home for me the risk that we take when we don't like follow the direction of the people who seem to know what's coming. And Cheryl was actually telling Mackenzie and me earlier this week that some maybe governor of or a mayor of a city was saying, you know, if you decide to stay, write your name on your arm in Sharpie so your family members will be able to identify your body. And I just thought about how many people in a situation like that would risk their own lives to go and save me, for example. And if I had made the decision not to follow, you know, and then I was willing to die trying, that's okay. But I think about the other people who would want to try to save me and first responders and things like that. So I guess for me, I just took it in as if somebody says it's time to go to higher ground or someplace else, then I would want to be one of the people that just did that, even if it turned out to be no big deal. I remember when there was supposed to be some major hurricane coming through California, which never happens. All of our Florida family was telling us all these things, and we filled up our bathtub and we did all the things that they told us so we'd be totally ready. And then it was really like a complete non-event. And so I felt a little silly about it, but at the same time, we had no idea, and we were as ready as we could be, and we were grateful that nothing terrible happened. And anyway, that's just what's on my mind today. Love you guys.
Thanks, Karen. I did hear that story and saw some of the footage of those mules taking, like the roads of North Carolina were out, impassable by car. So I love that these people, you know, like I said, like neighbors coming and helping neighbors. You know, it's like, hey, I've got some mules. Let's pack them up and send them up the hill for people. I just thought that was awesome. Yeah. And there, you know, some people will listen to the warnings and some people won't. And I hear all the stories. I don't hear all the stories, but I hear stories about why people won't leave. And then it's like, oh, it gives me so much more insight into my small, you know, my small window. Like, well, what if people can't leave, physically can't leave? What if people can't afford to leave? Maybe they don't, or they don't have a transportation to leave, or they have, if they do leave, they don't have anywhere to go. Or maybe they're, you know, the list goes on and on about people's reason not to go. And then, you know, as in life, even without a natural disaster, do we allow other people the dignity of their own choices? Like this man who wanted to stay. And I think a lot of people say in Florida, because hurricanes come in there a lot, I hear a lot of people that stay. I'm going to stay, you know, screw that hurricane. Now, this one was a bigger one that we just had than ever. When one of those comes around, sometimes more people end up leaving the next storm. But then, okay, now he's up in a tree. And then some people, you know, like if he lets go, he's going to die. And then do other people that are seeing him, do they let him be up in the tree, or do they go, I'm going to go save him? And even if I die, is it mine to do? Save this guy? Maybe. Or are they celebrating like, man, maybe that was like the thrill of his life. And that was like his last karma to clear. And he's like, he went out with a bang. He just went out just like he wanted to. I mean, the possibilities are open. But I was also thinking recently about how oftentimes helpers, sometimes first responders, but sometimes family members, friends, kind of think we know what would help another person, and we do that and try to save them instead of just allowing them the dignity of their own choice, of their own life, their own choices. So it's sometimes we get a little bit underwater. I was thinking teachers, social workers, nurses often will feel like, so heavy because I've just been helping so many people. And then can we help others? It's a thing of, can we take care of ourselves so we can help take care of others? So it's a lifelong journey, not just disasters, but certainly when there's a disaster come around. Hi, Birdie. We've been talking about how to prepare for natural disasters, getting our stuff organized so that it's ready to go if we need to, what's important for us or not, taking risks, living in risky places because it's important enough to us, etc.
That's earthquakes where I live.
Do you do anything specifically? I know there's lots of things that we are told to do for earthquakes. Is there anything that you do specifically to make sure you're prepared for an earthquake?
Nope.
Yeah.
Not yet. I just, it's not a priority right now.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And you've been fine. I every so often I would go like, yes, it's time to get the earthquake kit going. So I put the earthquake kit together. And then next time I looked at the earthquake kit, like all the food was expired, the batteries were dead, everything like that. I'm like, oh, got to do this again. So then I was like, well, maybe that's a good business model. Like just to you get in a membership and maybe once a year, someone comes and just delivers your new earthquake kit, takes back your other one, and now you're refreshed. Just put it on a shelf somewhere. You have batteries and flashlights and candles and some food, and you don't have to think about it.
That's called having a personal assistant who handles your life. I would love that someday.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Personal assistant that handles your life. I know there's so many things to handle in life, aren't there? So many details. Mm-hmm.
It's just a funny story. So I was a school teacher for 30 years, and the kids would be encouraged at the beginning of the year to bring, like a gallon-sized baggie with a snack and maybe a book to read and a picture of their family and things that would be comforting if we were ever in a situation where they needed to stay at school for a longer period of time. And what we would do, that we never had to use them. So on the last day of school or the last week of school, we would break out the box of all their stuff, and they would have forgotten about it because this was back in, August or September that they brought it in. We'd all sit around and eat the snacks, and, they'd talk about the pictures and the books and stuff. And so we always would have a little celebration that we never had to stay for an emergency. We were totally prepared, but that was always kind of fun. So maybe we should plan something like that.
I love that idea.
When I was a teacher, all we did was hide under the chairs in case there was a something. I don't even remember what. But okay, desks. When I was a kid and when I was a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that idea. I think that's so cool, Karen. Yeah.
Don, hi. Nice to see you.
Hey, I put together the physical components of my knock box, next of kin box,
Nice.
I worked at that and worked at that, and I mean, it was like a sunrise was coming soon. I overslept today all day practically, except for anyway. That was funny. Sorry. Most all my life of 74 years, I've been a volunteer disaster worker and such. And even when I was a little kid, my dad, who is a volunteer fireman in the small town, he'd always, if there was a tornado, if there wasn't anything, he'd take us by, and we would always see the aftermath of it, at least in something, and we'd be there when something was done. So anyway, now as I'm aging, and I'm certainly physically less able to do a lot of the stuff that I've done in the past, but and not as sharp mentally. But I realized not this hurricane coming nearby, but the one before it. I'm a ham radio operator and have a number of positions still. One of them is with the Weather Service, and I coordinate. I work with the different reports that come in with radio, and do all this stuff. It used to be with my wife. Anyway, I have a great realization as you guys are talking. It was that besides my own personal stuff being together, my stuff that I would still use should we be really hit with a hurricane. If there's half of me left, I'm going to be on the radio. I'm going to be doing a lot of that stuff. That's not real. It's like my own person. I don't have that stuff together. I don't have my radios programmed and things like that, Harley. Not so. Time to do another form of preparation, because that service just won't end. Having a hard time finding anyone to take my place in that. That's another thing. Very hard time finding replacements in this volunteer world right now. We haven't had a 9/11 or super hurricane on our block that brings out the volunteers and people.
Yeah, I mean, as you're talking, I'm just picturing all of your equipment and all the maintenance that those kind of things would take, and
equipment's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, things happen like so infrequently. Even we talk about like getting your important documents together in case you end up in the emergency room, and then people will know what to look. And it's like, well, there's part of it's like, well, it's not, what are the chances it happens? What are the chances a hurricane hits here? What are the chances of fire? Like, and then like it's always maintenance. I guess there's so many things to do that just in our day-to-day life to keep our life going, that some of those other things just go like, oh, it's I don't need to do that. So even if we have just the basics, like the contact list, the medication list, your power of attorney, even if you have those, you'll be able to do something with that. And that's, we just get it. Because if you start thinking about so many things, my batteries and my ham radio and my food. But there are some basics, like for me, and water. Someone mentioned the importance of water earlier. So I can buy like this big case of waters from Costco, like the small bottles, and I have a couple cases here all the time. And so I kind of use it. I'll put a few in the refrigerator, and I like to bring them out to like the lawn guys or the mailman. So I'll give them out. So they're not just sitting here for 10 years. So I'll use them. Everybody likes the cold water. Guests come over, if they're leaving and they can't have a cup, whatever. So then I just refresh that. And so it's double, so it serves as my backup for a earthquake, but also practical, and it's refreshed. So if we can get certain habits like that, then it's not extra. So it's not like, oh, I got to fill my earthquake kit. It's just kind of like in our regular routine, and serves multiple purposes.
True. Reminds me, like with the radio. Well, when we were really, really active down here, and we had a lot more volunteers in our different organizations and things. I mean, we had like a kind of weekly mini drill. You get on and say hi to everybody. You know, I'm here, and that means as long as that's going, you got your equipment going. And then we had regular drills that were, you know, got serious. And we go out, and, you know, do stuff, trainings, and when we had a Corps, basically we were that prepared. The city or the county or people would call for us, and we do radio for everybody's race, you know, telethon, not telethon, but their charity events where they race or bicycle or whatever. We do communicate, so we're constantly using all that stuff.
Right.
Really, that you didn't really have to think if you never did any disaster preparation and we're just doing the regular use of this stuff as a hobby. But the last decade, I ain't been hobbying in this very much. It's been, you know, taking care of the. So, good point. And I'm thinking dumb thing as we're talking too. To fill the bathtub with water, so you got some water at least if you don't have to, you have something to like flush the toilet with, etc. It doesn't have. I'm thinking, you know, do I have a stopper? I'm not using in the bathtub. I use I don't. I'm not sure I've got a good stopper that's really going to stop that and keep from leaking. And you know,
yeah.
I'm gonna check that out. I remember we used a great big garbage contractor bag. It's like a huge garbage bag to stick and put that inside the tub. Now I remember. So in spite of if the stopper worked or didn't work, it was in the big bag. Oh well. But disasters.
Yeah. What was that?
Disasters can be fun. I mean, with some exception, when things when it really hit the fan, it was just really tough. Some of the most rewarding times in my life, and my high points of my life, most of them have been some kind of a disaster. I have managed to be there for earthquake, flood, fire, neighborhood crime wave, and when I was, for example, I'm at the Weather Service where there's we're in a potential disaster. There's possibility of tornadoes coming, and all this, the alarms go off, and one of the Weather Service guys was running over to a piece of equipment to pick up the facts, and it's like a tornado. You know, we have an imminent tornado, and he says, "This is what we live for," and it's a peak. I've never forgotten that because it's true. It really worked. If you have that kind of attitude, it's like, hey, all right, disaster. I'm prepared for years for this thing. Go into a wonderful high gear. It's strange.
Yeah.
Where do you live, Don?
Miami.
Oh, I want to live in your neighborhood. I'll be safe.
Oh, you are? Who's that? Brett?
Bertie. I'm outside of Santa Monica, so the other side of the world here.
Do you still live in Miami, Don?
Yes.
Okay.
I was in Los Angeles for earthquake, Oklahoma for tornado when I was still pretty much a babe in arms, but still there's a memory in there. In Florida, Jamaica for an earthquake. Mostly things in Miami. Even when I was doing all this first responder training, and we had a fatality, a very, very gory fatality in my front lawn. And I'm out there and I'm jumping into the vehicle and, doing some, it would be the most awful, horrendous thing you can imagine to put in a horror movie. I'm having a peak experience. I'm doing the thing I prepared for. It's amazing. Oh, well.
Yeah, I mean, in the hurricane disaster that's happening right now, like some of these first responders are just, I'll say, they're not like, I don't know if it's like, oh, I'm so enjoying this process, because some of the things are really bad.
Yeah.
But the people that are like, they're trained forever to rescue people, swift water rescue, like they're actually using their talents instead
Yes.
of just being at in the desk or behind a desk, right? So it's like things that we want to train for but never use, but it's kind of exciting that they get to use them and save and hopefully save people,
And
really help.
it becomes 100% service. Well, you got all
Mm.
and people around me that have absolutely no religious bent, etc. But they're just there was something in them that made them become a volunteer. But
Mhm.
in doing this, the heart opens. You put yourself and do things way beyond the stuff that you would think you could do.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh well. Anyway.
Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah.
Don. That's cool stories. Yeah. Yeah. But it sounds like the technique as far as just making some of these things part of your routine and your habits. Like, it's not like, I would say today, Saturday, the first of every Saturday, I'm going to prepare for a natural disaster. Now, we're probably not going to do that, right? But if we go like, I'm just going to get in the habit of filling up my car with gas when it gets to a half a tank, so that that's my way to prepare. It's just a habit. I just do that. I keep a couple cases of water in my house and then use that and give it away. That's my way to prepare. I just have a contact list and on my refrigerator in case anything happens. I just not naturally do that. So it's not that we've got to make it a special time, but if it's just part of our habits that we do on an ongoing basis, then we're all of a sudden we're just prepared. I didn't even know I was prepared, but this thing happened and I'm ready.
Okay, so you're making me think about your mother, who is always prepared for anything. Do you guys remember that game show called Let's Make a Deal? And in order to go on the show, then I don't remember who the host was, but he would say, okay, who has a tissue in their purse, and you dig around in there, and whoever could come up with it first would get to go on the show. I think Cheryl's mom would win that game show every single time, because it didn't matter what you need, she always had it. And I see so much of that part of Margie Matthew in this beautiful woman who's very prepared for every eventuality. I had a friend once who they said, does anybody have a French fry? And she found one in the bottom of her purse.
Brother.
On that game show. So you never know when you're going to need an old French fry.
Yeah.
But I think that'd be a good reason to have, like, always carry chocolate in your purse, because you never know. You make it fun. What's funny, as we're talking, I have an earthquake app on my phone. And so just now it says a 3.9 earthquake just occurred 3 miles east of Eastvale, California. So I wonder if those people were prepared.
You mean the fish? Oh no, East is
East.
I think, Karen, it was Bob Barker who was the
Okay, yeah. Do you have a paper clip? Do you have a thumbtack? Like some random things. And my mother would always be, I don't know where she got that from, but yeah, she'd be prepared. And so I do kind of think, especially when Mackenzie was little, because I'd have to think about, like, what would a kid need? If we'd be on a flight, okay, you need the extra set of clothes just in case that happens. But then, like we talked about, it always usually is okay, right? And even when we think, well, that wasn't okay, it's probably okay anyway. Like the one time we were on a flight, we'd go from Los Angeles to Florida to visit my family when Mackenzie was little. I always knew, pack an extra pair of clothes for her because things happen on a long flight. Well, the one time I didn't pack an extra pair of pants for her, she needed them. I just say that. So I had a long sleeve, kind of like a sweatshirt type of thing. And I made that into a pair of pants. And she wore that off of the plane until we could get the suitcase, put those on. And so everything was fine. So, no matter what we do or don't do, it's going to be fine, right? It just depends on what level of fine you want, right? So like when I go out of town, I have learned there's certain things that I want to pack in my personal bag. Like little things that if they happen, they bother me. They might not bother you, right? I've got my stuff. Sometimes when I go to a hotel, I get allergies. So I've got my nasal spray. I do like my personal shampoo. I don't really love shampoos from hotels. I don't like the scents and things like that. So I make sure I have my shampoo. A nail file, nail clipper helps because then if I get something, I don't keep playing with it or chew it. So little things that I know just from getting older, and Karen probably has a whole list of things that I bring. You got to have this just in case. And so I have that. And I used to kind of judge myself like, oh, do you have to bring this stuff? And it doesn't take up much room, but it's just a few things that make my life better if I have them. So same thing with just preparing for disasters, or like if I need to leave my house right away, what would I want? And we all have our own thing that just make me like, if a hotel room is cold, if I can put my socks on, that warms me up. And the socks will make a difference if I'm like freezing all night and super uncomfortable, or if I'm warm. So I just put my socks in my bag. It's little things like that, but we each have our own thing. Some people don't have anything. They're low maintenance. We all each have our thing. So whatever that is for you, I encourage you to think about it. And, if something were to happen, you grab it so you can be comfortable. And if you don't, you're going to be fine anyway. That's the message for the day. We're all going to be fine.
I don't
All right.
traveling.
I love you.
Oh.
What's up? Yeah. Did you have something else, Bertie, before we close?
Hey, I'll share it another time.
Are you sure? We have a minute.
So I don't like traveling because I have to take everything. And Karen knows we roomed together in the Inside 3. She had one little suitcase and I filled the whole rest of the room. That's why it's so crazy making for me to travel. Like, I'm supposed to go to the Insight 3 tomorrow, and it's like, oh my God, do I really want to start schlepping again? And I don't use 90% of the stuff, but it's got to be there just in case.
Yeah. And that's okay. You don't have to judge yourself. You could just
never know what you're going to want to wear. You got to make sure it feels right on that day. And, if you can do it, just, do what makes you happy.
Libras don't know what they want to wear tomorrow, let alone 4 days from now. Excuse me.
I know. Who knows what mood you'll be in?
Right. Thank you. Someone understands.
Yeah. So when you think about like your go bag, like if something happens and you need to leave your place, you may want to consider, I'm going to throw those clothes in there, or not. Just walk out, bring a little extra cash, get buy clothes on the road.
No, we're too fussy. We don't like buying clothes on the road.
All right. I love you all.
Love you.
God bless you. We are well protected and cared for all the time. I love you. Hope to see you again.